My Outlook Days, Part 6, written by Vinod Mehta. On 14th October 2003, the Finance Ministry released an advertisement on the health of the nation. The headline, India Shining, conceived and created by the advertising agency Grey Worldwide. It would go down in the country's electoral history. Actually, India Shining had three other competitors: India Alive, India Rising, and India Dazzling. Mr. L.K. Advani selected India Shining. Despite the Gujarat riots, despite a multitude of corruption scandals, despite the never ending Advani Vajpayee tussle, which led to at least one very public quarrel in which Atalji resigned, ना टायर ना रिटायर, अद्वानी जी के नेतृत्व में पार्टी आगे जाएगी. नो टायर और रिटायर, Advani ji will lead the party. The India story under the BJP emerged conspicuously. With GDP growth at 8.5%, with IT sectors the pride of the Republic, and names like Narayan Murthy and Azim Premji internationally acclaimed, with the telecom revolution in the hands of the common man in the form of a mobile phone, with the media booming, a new sense of self confidence and empowerment manifested itself in the urban Indian middle class. A friend who had returned from an overseas holiday could not stop talking about the miraculous change in the status of his credit card. It could be freely used in London and Lagos. No more foreign currency hassles. The days of limited dollars were over. The India story reflected most strikingly in the overloaded shops and spectacular shopping malls. From shampoos to Swiss chocolates to computer chips to Italian cheese to American wafers, everything was being traded at your friendly neighborhood store. A shopkeeper in Delhi's Khan market complained many customers came not to buy goods but just to gape at them. The editor of Granta, my friend Ayan Jack, was asked on returning to the capital after a few years by an Outlook reporter if he noticed any change. Yes, he replied, my Indian friends don't ask me to bring things from London anymore. By things, he meant hinge baked beans, digestive biscuits. He also lamented how his beloved India might fall prey to a dreaded Western disease, that is, consumerism. Others warned India was in danger of losing its soul. In those heady days of globalization, many old India hands from Western lands did express alarms vis-a-vis our precious soul. They advised Indians not to get overwhelmed by rampant worldly desires. By all means, they said, improve your lot but don't become like us. The entry of McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Domino's foretold, according to them, the death of Indian civilization. It must be admitted, India Shining struck a chord not just in the affluent areas of Malabar Hills, Bombay, but in Dadar, not just in Golf's Link, Delhi, but in Karol Bagh. If one lived in such places, India Shining seemed at once authentic and palpable. The BJP's high tech boys, led by Pramod Mahajan, were ecstatic with the find. They were sure it was a winning slogan for the general election. Even more than Mahajan, the Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani took a shrine to India Shining. He had not an iota of doubt it was the Rath for another term. Its life was extended. It became the tune for the BJP election song. A public interest litigation in the Delhi High Court by a concerned citizen asked their lordships to investigate the purpose of the campaign and who was footing the bill. Nonetheless, the Blitzkrieg continued. An estimated 500 crore rupees was spent by the government of India to ensure electoral victory for the BJP. In between, the BJP won state elections in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh. Now, the feel good factor could not be denied. Mr. Advani, under the influence of RSS ideologue S. Gurumurthy, came up with one more masterstroke. Why not cash in and have early elections? The situation is in our favor. We have been able to win the people's confidence with our performance in the assembly polls, asserted a leader justifying early elections. Accordingly, the Lok Sabha was dissolved on 26 February 2004, almost 9 months before schedule. Only one man in the party had serious reservations about both early elections and the India Shining strategy. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, the old fox, was too experienced to fall for marketing gimmicks. But no one in the party would listen to him. Such was the force and momentum of India Shining, and such was its illusory potency that a mood of gloom and doom descended on the Congress. One could not blame the Congress for surrendering. Opinion poll after opinion poll predicted a clear win for the BJP in the multi phase election slated for April May. Outlook played its part in spearheading the misery by publishing not just an exclusive opinion poll but the final opinion poll, which showed the NDA getting 276 seats, with the Congress and its allies getting 166. Even while the BJP seemed assured of triumph, and even while A.B. Vajpayee soared in the national consciousness as a leader who stood above his party and enjoyed nationwide appeal, the BJP election campaign turned vicious. It zeroed in on Sonia, Rahul, and Priyanka. Not their inexperience, but their foreign origin became the core issue. The possible crowning of Sonia Gandhi would not merely be a black day in the history of modern India, but as Uma Bharati pithily put it, Sonia would gravely endanger India's security since, as a foreigner, she would be privy to all top secret documents pertaining to the nation. Who would she sell these secrets to? In the BJP's eyes, multiple buyers existed, but top of the list was the Pope in Rome. Sushma Swaraj, who has come a long way since, threatened she would tonsure her head, drape herself in a white sari, and eat only roasted gram if the lady from Orbasano assumed the gaddi. On 13th May 2004, the tsunami struck. Exit and opinion poll wallahs got it wrong, pundits got it wrong, astrologers got it wrong. Only this magazine's letter writer got it right when he noted sarcastically that if an Outlook opinion poll forecast an election victory for the BJP, the opposite would happen. And so it did. Our cover photograph showed Sonia Gandhi beaming under the weight of a 1-ton garland with the headline India Accepts Sonia. The blurb asserted, in a stunning example to the world, Indian voters back a government led by a person of foreign origin. The BJP's Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi blurted when the air conditioning conked out in the party's media briefing room in Delhi on the day of results. India is still shining, but if there is a temporary breakdown, it is because of the Congress party. Sonia's Congress got 145 seats, while the alliance the party headed got 217. The BJP got 138 seats, while the NDA got 185. Given the 60 odd seats the left parties won, the Congress seemed to be coasting to power. To say the BJP was stunned, shocked, speechless, stupefied, shell shocked, so to some extent was the Congress is, to put it mildly. When I met Pramod Mahajan, he was nearly in tears. How did it happen? It was not a question he was asking me, but himself. Typically, the party with a difference did the vanishing act. For 24 hours, 11 Asoka Road, the party's headquarters, resembled a ghost house. Mr. L.K. Advani, the proprietor and promoter of India Shining, owned up with some dignity. The Deputy Prime Minister called for introspection and corrective action, even as he grudgingly admitted the two most hated words then in the BJP lexicon had backfired. Advaniji blamed his opponents' perversity. They had used the phrase India Shining to highlight poverty, uneven development, unemployment, and problems of farmers. Advani's enemies in the party, most of them living in 7 Racecourse Road, were less charitable. They reminded all and sundry that their man repeatedly opposed excessive reliance on a slogan created by an advertising agency. With some satisfaction, Namita and company pointed out that thanks to the wretched slogan, the BJP in Delhi, where if anywhere India should have been shining, lost 6 of the 7 seats it held. As early as March 2004, the CPM's Sitaram Yechury's warning also went unheeded. The Goebbelsian principle works on the premise that if a lie is repeated over and over again, it has the potential to become the truth. And the India Shining campaign is driven by that theory. It is not as if there is no truth in it. In fact, it is a shining period for a handful of people. The fact of the matter is 20% of the urban population's per capita consumption has increased at the rate of 40% per year. This increment is historical and finds no parallel in the history of independent India. At the same time, the life of nearly 600 million people, nearly 80% of the entire population, has shown a steady decline. Alec Padmsi, the ad guru, too had cautioned against a backlash. Alec, who knows a thing or two about selling, said, an advertisement should tell the truth. Otherwise, the product which is being advertised is sure to come down. Within 48 hours of being sworn in, the Congress, unused to working coalition governments, ran into a storm. The rough weather came courtesy the DMK chief M. Karunanidhi, who threatened to pull out all his ministers on the issue of portfolios. Finally, after some scripted histrionics, the party, as the Indian Express put it, without giving an inch, got more than a mile. The three ministries, surface transport, highways and shipping, communications and IT, environment and forests, the DMK chief was insisting on, were cash rich, aptly described as ATM ministries and waiting to be milked, which is allegedly what the DMK ministers T.R. Balu, Dayanith Maran and A. Raja proceeded to do from day one. Unfortunately, that was not all. Balu, Maran and Raja could conceivably compete for the praise of being the most incompetent ministers in the history of independent India. Later, when Maran was banished in an intra-family feud, A. Raja took over communications and IT, where he persevered with his singular gift for creating havoc. He should have been sent to jail more for the mess he single-handedly precipitated in a sunrise sector than for his financial misconduct. Meanwhile, the BJP showed no remorse. They got ready to oust the foreigner who was scheduled to sell state secrets to the Pope. The foreigner, in an inspired move, checkmated them. In an outflanking maneuver, she declined the throne. Once again, the BJP was knocked out as Sonia, despite the howling and wailing of her party, refused to be persuaded. The history of Indian politics since 1947 has to a large extent been the history of power grabbing, mostly for the top job. Here was an Italian immigrant spurning it. I produced an Outlook issue titled Saint Sonia, which in the eyes of my detractors was a new low in sycophancy, as I defied a suspect Italian. Congress MPs maintained that the crashing of the Sensex, the suicide of RSS activist Mahesh Prabhu, protest rallies all over the country, ultimatums by Sushma Swaraj and Uma Bharati to mobilize the country on the foreigner issue, and the escalating threat perception to the Gandhi family convinced Sonia that discretion is the better part of valor. The Aam Aadmi, however, saw Sonia's sacrifice as something else. Disbelief plus admiration became the ruling sentiments. Sonia's decision to nominate Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister found approval across the board. Dr. S.K. Sinha of the Safdarjung Hospital, in a letter to Outlook, emphasized the good Sardar's humility. I had on this particular day finished the rounds of my ward when I found a pleasant surprise awaiting me outside my room, that is, Dr. Manmohan Singh and his wife. They were there to see me on a colleague's reference. I spent 30 to 40 minutes with them. Throughout my interaction with him, Dr. Singh listened quietly to the medical advice. The consultation over, I got up to see them off, but Dr. Singh stopped me saying, I insist you stay. Please attend to your other patients. India is lucky to have him as Prime Minister. I had kept up my friendship with J.N. Dikshit, that is J.N. Mani Dikshit, although he had ceased to be our consultant to pursue a career in politics. Given his temperament, he joined the Congress, and when the party came to power, he became the National Security Advisor. M.K. Narayanan curiously got the job of Special Advisor Internal Security to the Prime Minister. Mani was the darling of the media, candid, easygoing, formidably perceptive on foreign policy matters. He was always willing to share his perspective with journalists. M.K. Narayanan was the opposite, manipulative and also a legendary and accomplished turf fighter. Not surprisingly, he proceeded to chip away at Mani's domain, creating obstacle after obstacle for the NSA. Mani, though not completely bereft of infighting skills himself, proved to be no match. Sooner rather than later, they fell out, mainly because Narayanan seemed determined to pack the intelligence agencies with his cronies from Kerala. How many Malayalis do you want in the PMO? Mani asked Narayanan, indicating they were already well represented in the Prime Minister's office. In late December 2004, I met Mani for lunch. Battered by his non-stop battle with Narayanan, he was not his usual self. On 3rd January, he went to the house of the editor of the Indian Express, Shekhar Gupta, for a lunch. He came home agitated. He had a heated talk with his wife, Anu, and once again talked about quitting. I would prefer to die with the harness on, he told his wife. I don't want to let the Prime Minister down after all he has done for me. Next morning, while shaving, he had a fatal heart attack. V. Sudarshan, on our foreign desk, spoke to Mani's close friends, principally his wife. We printed a story based on these conversations, which quoted by his friend here read as his wife as saying, they killed him. By they, she meant the Prime Minister's office. Sudarshan pieced together the ugly tug of war within the PMO, which put a huge strain on Dikshit, a strain he succumbed to. The preeminent inflictor of the strain, M.K. Narayanan, found prominent mention. Sanjay Baru, the Prime Minister's press advisor, and other in the PMO never questioned the veracity of our story. They wanted to know who the sources were. I told them Even a cursory reading of the report, full of personal and family details, would reveal the source. Your magazine has made a grave charge implicating the Prime Minister's office. I think you owe us an explanation, the PMO official thundered. I laughed and said, "You know the source." But they did not have the guts to ask the grieving and fuming bereaved wife. M.K. Narayanan, understandably, was seething. So, to some extent, was Manmohan Singh, who, regrettably, had played a hands-off role in the Dikshit Narayan hostilities. Sudarshan spied Narayanan at a diplomatic function. He went up and politely introduced himself. "You write rubbish," the internal security chief declared. "I will have you shot, but I will do it my way." Satinder Lamba, our former ambassador to Pakistan and Moscow and track 2 point person, prevented an open altercation. He drew Sudarshan aside on the pretext of having something urgent to discuss with him. Thank you for listening.